and welcome to Curt's Corner. I'm your host, Cur3t's. Today we'll be visiting with Carroll College Hall of Famer Harry Downs. But first I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of new sponsors, namely Gary Turcotte. And I think it's more than fitting that Gary joins my venture into TV land this week, considering that he once coached one of the sports that my guest played at the Hilltop, basketball, for over 20 years. And like Harry, Gary is also a member of the Saints Hall of Fame. So thanks, Gary. Also, we have another new sponsor, although this individual prefers to remain anonymous. However, without spilling too many of the beans, I will say that similar to Harry, he is also a Helena Cathedral High and Carroll alum. He knows who he is, and I appreciate his support. Now to our guest. I first met Harry in 2010 with John Ramasco and Ed Jasmine when I wrote about their St. Helena Lions 3Rs 1947 football runners-up and 48 basketball champions in the grade school sports league. And then again in 2016, I featured the same three guys concerning their 1951 Helena Cathedral High Hoopsters state Class C runner-up finish. Harry played both football and basketball at Carroll, where he was a two-time all-conference selection on the gridiron. After a stint in the Navy and marrying his college sweetheart, Elizabeth Ungarini, is that close? Okay. While attending Georgetown Law School, Harry met John F. Kennedy. He went into the insurance field in California and Nevada before returning to Montana in the early 2000s after retirement. An avid golfer, among Harry's pastimes later in life are attending Carroll football and basketball games, meeting with his high school and college buddies at the Greenie Luncheons at Jorgensen's, poker night with guys like Dave Van Ice, smoking cigars at his cabin, and eating ice cream with his grandkids. So, Harry.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Okay, now first of all, Harry, I was wondering, is there any chance that I could get a good reference on my map-making skills?
I'll be happy to make one for you.
Yeah, you're going to have to lie, though. During the pre-interview, I was drawing a map. I was showing Harry how to get to this location at 1015 Poplar, and I took him the scenic route rather than the easy route up Poplar Street. And where did you think that you would have ended up if you had kept following my map?
Probably down to 6th Ward.
6th Ward. Yeah. And the Poplar's my old street, so I don't know why I didn't simplify it for you, but I didn't. Okay, let's start at the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born in Great Falls, Montana, January 1, 1935.
Okay. So, New Year's baby?
That's right. Yeah, I was second in the state. Well, my mother got 6 diapers.
Oh, wow.
But they were cloth.
Cloth diapers, yeah. Yeah. And they lasted a long time, too, I bet. So, go ahead and tell us who your siblings are in chronological order.
Carol, 2 years younger, Smith.
And where's she at now?
She's in Clifton Park, New York.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then Tom Downs, who unfortunately passed away a year ago last October.
Okay.
And then there was John, who passed away as well.
Who everybody knows.
Yeah, and that was probably about 16 or 17 years ago when he was 60.
Yeah, he died young.
And then the baby of the family was Diane Murray, and she lives in Seattle.
Okay. Now, I'd like to start off with that 1951 team that you guys were on, basketball. HCH won the first Class C District 8 their first Class C District 8 championship since 1942. Next came a playoff win over the Belfry Bats. Now that's my favorite nickname for a sports team, the Belfry Bats. For the Greenies, first ever state tournament qualification. At state in Livingston, the Greenies beat Harlem and St. Ignatius to reach the Chipper versus the Poplar Indians. In a back-and-forth game, underdog Cathedral trailed 24-22 at halftime, but led 40-35 late in the fourth quarter, only to have Poplar score 5 unanswered points to knot the score in regulation and force an overtime. In the waning moments of OT, the Indians led 43-42. With 4 seconds left, Greenie Jim Callahan knocked down an opposing pass, picked up the rolling ball, and drove to the hoop for what appeared to be a title-winning layup for the 44-43 title before the buzzer. However, the referee waved off the basket, ruling that Jim, who did not hear the whistle over the roar of the crowd, had traveled while trying to pick up the loose ball. So the Greenies settled for the runner-up trophy. So Harry, what are your memories of that game, and what's your verdict on that final call?
Well, I was at the other end of the gym when Callahan made the bucket, and I thought initially that we had won the game.
As did all the Greenie fans.
As did they.
In the gym.
As did they. And some of the memories were kind of negative for me because I had to guard a guy named Mike Grandboy, and I know that the first time he went up for a jump shot, I was looking at his belt buckle.
So how tall was he and how tall were you?
Well, he wasn't that much taller than I was, but boy, he could sure jump.
He was a jumper, huh?
Yeah. I think that's where they got the saying, white men can't jump.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were saddened by the loss, as naturally players are. But having reached that pinnacle, we had to have some measure of feeling good.
Right. Yeah. You were huge underdogs. I'm guessing.
I don't know if we were or not.
Not too bad. Okay.
I don't know. Of course, we didn't play Poplar in the season because they weren't in our conference. But I don't know. I don't remember how we were rated.
Okay. What about Jim Callahan? Have you guys talked about that? Less than 1,000 times.
Well, not so much that particular part of our life, but he and I played against Elgin Baylor at one time in a tournament in Bozeman when he played for College of Idaho.
Right. Yeah.
And so I claimed that I was guarding Baylor, and Callahan said, "No, you weren't. It was he and Jim Hogan."
Oh, okay. I actually have some notes on that game. The Grandboy, he was the only unanimous selection to the all-tournament team, led the tourney in scoring, and the 2 games before your game, he averaged 29 points a game. And against you guys, you held him to only 23. And after the game, Cathedral coach Jim Reardon told the IR, oops, I don't have your quote here. Anyway, he told the IR that he only scored 2 points in the second half because that you guys had figured out a plan to limit his scoring. Now, do you remember anything about that?
No, not really. I'm too long of tooth.
Okay, well, it was a great quote, and I'm very disappointed that it got, must have been a computer glitch. It couldn't have been my fault. But it was a great quote, and he credited your defense, word for word, on holding Grandboy to 2 points in the second half.
Oh, that was nice.
So
that was nice of Jim. He was a great coach and a great man.
Yep. So your team finished at 22-6, led by center Hal Hunter's 15.6 points a game. You were the fourth leading scorer at 7.4 points per game. These are stats from the paper, so they have to be right. Right? Okay. But you were number 2 in personal fouls with 103 behind John Garden's 104. So I'm guessing you were a physical type player?
Well, had to be. I was too slow otherwise.
You had to slow him down, yeah. Did you foul out of a few games?
I suppose I did.
Okay. Yeah, long in the tooth. Let's see, now the next year, your senior year, you upped your scoring to 11.9 points per game, number 2 behind Callahan, who averaged 16.8 points per game, which broke Pat Kelly's record, school record. So had you grown a little bit your senior year? Did you have a late growth spurt or anything like that?
No, not that I recall. I think I was pretty much the same height my junior and senior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
How tall were you?
About at that time, about 5'10".
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about college? How big did you
college,
get? 6 foot?
I went up to 6 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, well, from my perspective, I recognize a few names on that team, like Jim Trudnowski and Dale Creel and the 2 other guys I talked about earlier. I worked both, coincidentally, worked with both of those guys 20 years later at Buttrey's, Trudnowski and Creel. And Jim Gross was, I think, maybe a freshman on that team.
Well, he was a year behind me.
He was. And he was one of my teachers at Helena High 15 years later or whatever. So next you went to Carroll College. You earned 7 letters there, my research shows. So if I'm wrong on anything, feel free to correct me. 4 in football and 3 in basketball. He was a member of 6 conference championship teams, 3 in both sports, football and basketball. 2-time all-conference gritter at tackle, linebacker, and punter. So you told me an interesting, funny story about your punt in Wyoming. If you could relate that again, please.
Yeah, we were playing in Wyoming, and I can't recall our opponent, but it was snowing and colder than the dickens, and the team was beating us handily, and I went back for a punt, probably one of my 4th or 5th ones, and in those days, the wire recorders were in vogue, and my dad had one. So,
listening to the game.
What's that?
Listening to the game.
He was listening to the game here in Helena, and when I came back from the trip, he had the wire recorder on, and it spoke something like, "Downs is back for a punt. It's a long, high punt, and it lands behind Downs."
The wind caught it.
Yeah. So there, you had to be humble in a household, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you say you were getting beat handily, which didn't happen very often with the Saints back in those days.
No, I think that team was pretty high up in a division above us.
Okay, so they were
whatever that was at that time.
They were another level.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next level up. Okay. So your first coach was John Gallardi, who went on to be the all-time winningest coach in
That's
college
correct, yeah.
history.
He coached both football and basketball my freshman year.
Right.
And then he went to St. Thomas in Minnesota.
Right. Any good stories, John Gallardi stories?
Oh, yeah, John was a character.
And he wasn't much older than you guys.
No, not too much, because he was a player coach in Colorado, I believe it was, and he had several fellows that had come back from the Korean War, who were older than he was.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I know that we were at a game out of town, and a group of us were sitting in the hotel room, and Rich Cool, who was probably 3 or 4 years older than Gallardi, was sitting there having a smoke. And Gallardi came in the room and he went right up to Cool nose to nose and said, "I can see it coming out of your ears." And Cool had taken a cigarette and shoved it back down in his mouth.
Flipped it inside his tongue that was a trick. I never could learn that one.
No, that was a trick that only old smokers knew.
Yeah, right. He saw it coming out of his ears.
But John was a character. I know that he referred to me as a rattlesnake, and I had hoped it was for my football prowess, but it wasn't. He was told by somebody that I was two-timing him with his girlfriend.
Oh, no.
And
it wasn't
I happened to be in a convertible driven by his girlfriend. Oh, and somebody saw us.
You were innocent.
Yeah, I was innocent.
You were a victim of circumstance.
Yeah. Anyway, he said, "You're not starting," and I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter, Coach? You mad at me?" And he says, "You know what I'm mad at you for." So anyway, I sat on the bench for the first quarter, but he finally let me in.
Did you straighten him out on the truth?
No, I was too afraid that he'd bench me for the whole game.
Yeah. Okay. And then your other coach was Ray Hunthausen. Ray Dutch Hunthausen went on to become the Archbishop of Seattle.
Correct.
What are your favorite memories of Ray?
Dutch was a great guy, and he was a great coach. And one story I remember is that when Gallardi first came to Carroll, he had a room up on one of the upper floors, and he was looking out on the practice gridiron. We didn't have Nelson Stadium at that time.
Was it Scullin Field?
What's that?
Was it Scullin Field?
I don't know. I think they use it as a practice field now, whatever they call it. Okay. But at any rate, he saw this guy out there in fatigues punting the ball 50 yards, and he said, "Oh, God, I got to find out and make sure he's on the team." So he went down, and it was Hunthausen.
Oh.
He was kicking the ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, Dutch was a great athlete in his own right, and was a good coach. He knew football, I think, better than basketball, but he was quite expert in both sports.
Right.
And I was fortunate to have two good coaches.
Yeah.
Gallardi, as you spoke of, was the all-time NCAA winner, and
St. John's.
Hunthausen was also very successful in his chosen occupation.
Yes, he was. Yep. Now, Guido Buni, was he?
Yeah, Guido.
Was he your era?
Guido and I played together. Guido.
And he was an All-American, Catholic All-American.
Yeah, Guido played center, and my other cousin, well, Guido was not a cousin, but he was a great friend of my cousin Jack Noonan, who was also on the team. Mm-hmm. And Guido to this day knows everybody in Butte and Helena.
Yeah.
And you mention somebody to him, oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a couple other superstars that I've written about. Well, one in particular is Walt Ramosko.
Yeah, Walt was a good friend of mine.
So he was a 3-time all-conference first team in both football and basketball. Every year, both sports, 3 years in a row. So.
He had the sharpest elbows in Montana.
Well, he told me that he fouled out of a lot of games too.
Well,
he thought his scoring average would have been much higher had he not fouled out of as many games as he did.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed him, with the big handlebar mustache, like Ben Davidson. He reminded me of Ben Davidson. Yeah.
Yeah, Walt was a good friend of mine. I remember that we went to Pocatello, where he lived, and I called him up, and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm at the Holiday Inn," and he said, "I'm coming right over." So I said, "Okay." So Walt came right over with his 5 kids, and they all jumped in the pool.
Oh yeah, free swimming on your dime.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are my cousins. Okay, now I read that your senior year you were selected the president of the Monogram C Club. And if my research is accurate, instead of playing Carroll hoops that final year, did you play instead for the City Merchant League champion Oasis Bar? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do you
Is
remember?
that the one where we had a 6-pack of beer during halftime?
It's probably, yeah, from your sponsor. But you didn't play college basketball your senior year?
No, I decided to hit the books for a change, and
Okay.
I'm glad I did.
Yeah, okay, right. 1986, you were inducted into the Carroll College Football Hall of Fame. So what are your memories of that occasion?
Well, it was quite a surprise. I was in my office in Oakland, California, when I got the call from Bob Robinson,
Oh, yeah.
advising me of the honor. And I was quite surprised, and it was a great feeling, to be honored in such a way.
Sure.
And they treated the inductees very well that particular time during homecoming, with a free dinner and whatever.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Very good. So your brothers Tom and John both followed in your footsteps in athletics. Tell me a little bit about Tom's sports.
Well, Tom was primarily he did play basketball and football in high school. And of course, I never saw him play, actually.
Because you were playing.
Pardon? No, I was out of sports.
You were in the
and
Navy
down in California at that time. So,
yeah, okay.
I never saw him play. And I never saw John play either. And John was in football. I don't know if he played basketball. He probably did, but I don't know, if he did or not.
I know he was a great.
Tom was a good golfer, and that was his favorite sport as he got a little older.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he had 5 holes in one.
Now, what about you? I heard you had a few holes in one.
Well, I had 2.
You had
but
2. Okay.
They were on the same hole on the Green Meadow Country Club.
Okay.
And it was a par 3 with a little pond in front. And the first one, I hit the ball and the wind was blowing, and I didn't even see it. And the guys with me did. Oh. And
thought maybe you had a flashback to that punt, and you thought maybe it would landed behind you.
Could have been, yeah. But at any rate, I was thinking of California, where the custom was to buy everybody a drink when you hit a hole in one.
Yeah.
And this was at a tournament, and there were about 250 guys there. So going back to the clubhouse, they asked, who was that guy, Henry somebody, that hit the hole in one? I said, no, it was Harvey Demers. And Harvey Demers came up to me and he said, you cost me a lot of money.
So did he really have to buy the drinks?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think he just...
He
just heard it. Everybody said, come on, Harvey, you got to buy us a drink. You got a hole in one.
Yeah.
He didn't know what they were talking about.
Let's see. So just for kind of a side note, you know, John's, his 6 kids, his 4 daughters all played for Helena High championship basketball teams, right? And at least Lisa played for Carol, and maybe Teresa. But
I think Teresa probably did. Katie went down to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
University of California, Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And we went to see her play. And she came up to us before the game started to give us a hug and said, Uncle Harry, he says, what are banana slugs? And that was the mascot for Santa Cruz.
Oh,
the
wow.
Banana slug.
Yeah, that's better than the Bill-free bats. Huh?
Yeah.
And then, but anyway, I found that interesting that you played for a state championship and your nieces, all 4 played, but they won theirs.
That's true.
Well, you guys should have won yours.
No traveling.
Yeah, no traveling. And then, of course, the 2 sons. Dan was a linebacker for the Grizz. He's in our Helena Sports Hall of Fame. And now, Tom, the name Kevin, played for Capital and Carroll, correct?
Correct.
Kevin Downs. Now, he had a brother. Did he also do sports?
Michael?
Yeah, Michael.
Michael, he may have, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
He's at O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California, and very involved in religious history and that kind of thing.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And I don't know if he played sports or not. Okay. Once again, he would have been during the time that I was down in California.
Right. Yeah, so religion, that's part of your family genes as well.
Yeah, he went to Notre Dame, and
oh yeah.
I asked my brother, I says, how can you afford Notre Dame? He says, Michael is smart.
Scholarship. Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, we're going to take a sponsorship break here, if you don't mind. Exit Realty is one of my business sponsors. So give Bob Denherter a call at phone 406-449-8831. And he's located at Western Premier Helena Great Northern Hotel. Exit Realty, locally owned and internationally strong. Thanks, Bob. Also, Brecky Excavating and Construction, under owner Ray Brecky. Phone 406-443-8782 or 406-439-5721. He's located at 5925 Lincoln Road. Thanks, Ray. And shout out to a couple individual sponsors, Pat Murphy and Ken Nettleton. Thanks, guys. Okay, let's dive into part 2, which I have on a separate pad here. Tell us about your Navy experience.
Yeah, I was in the NROTC program. My dad sang in the cathedral choir next to Norbert Frigge. And Norbert Frigge, kind of an irony that he was the head of the NROTC program at there at Central School where they had the meeting. So he asked my dad what my plans were, and my dad said he's going to college, and so Norbert mentioned the NROTC program.
Naval Reserves.
And so I joined the reserve at age 17, and when I finished Carroll, I was commissioned as an ensign in the Navy,
Okay.
and signed a contract for 3 years enlistment.
Okay.
And I got my orders right away after graduation and went down to San Diego and went aboard the USS Floyd County, a landing ship tank, or LST as they were commonly referred to.
Right.
And I spent my 2 years of active duty aboard the LST Floyd County. And I had 2 trips to the Orient and stops in Hawaii and Midway in Guam and
2 Westbacks.
along the way. So Uncle Sam showed me some of the country that a guy from Montana was not used to.
That's right. Yeah.
And I
Did you get used to the? Were you seasick at first?
no,
No?
I wasn't seasick. I withstood most of the storms that we encountered. However, I do remember in January we were moored, I think it was in Okinawa, and January 1st is my birthday, and I imbibed a little too much.
That's right.
So that was one occasion when I was sick. So so I had the deck and was obliged to steer the ship out of the long canal, and I had to holler down the voice tube for a bucket, and the quartermaster yelled up, "Who's sick?" And I said, "I am." And he didn't believe it because I hadn't been sick before.
Uh-huh.
But at any rate, I survived.
Yeah. So, I've got a note here about the NROTC instructor at Notre Dame offer. What's details on
when
that?
I was being discharged in Tokyo, a lieutenant commander who was involved in recruiting came aboard ship, and he wanted me to re-up for another 3 years. And of course that was an obligation that I had to think about. He said, you get your choice of duty stations, and one of them was instructor at Notre Dame.
Uh-huh.
So I had to think kind of hard on that.
Yeah.
That would have been my only chance to go to Notre Dame. And
Yeah.
at any rate, I decided to pass up re-upping, which was kind of good for me because this was before Korea and Vietnam. And Vietnam was just starting, and that the LSTs were in good demand because of their shallow draft and their ability to beach the craft.
Yeah, get in close.
And so I thought my timing was correct. I was in between the 2 wars. So.
Yeah. And wasn't there a little bit of love bug involved?
What's that?
Was there a little bit of love bug involved?
Well,
Had you been bitten?
maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So you came home, you got married to Liz.
That's correct.
Yeah. And what was the date on that?
June 28th,
All right. So you see, you
1958.
You won't get in trouble now. She's over there keeping track.
I remember.
Let's see here. So let's go to Georgetown Law School.
Yeah, I was at Georgetown. I went back to Washington, D.C. for that purpose, and I did not have the GI Bill because they had thrown it out during my service time.
Oh.
And so I had to get a job, and I ended up running an elevator in the Senate building.
Okay.
And my wife and then daughter came later on, and I found out that my stipend from the elevator operation wasn't going to make it.
Oh.
So I had to leave that and get a job, and in the meantime, I had to leave law school, so I went to work for Government Employees Insurance Company.
Okay. Now, where does the meeting of JFK come in?
Well, my friend Gene Hogan and I had gone back to Washington together.
Okay.
And he went to Georgetown's postgraduate school while I went to the law school, and we were both running elevators at the Senate building. He was under Mansfield's patronage, and I was under Cannon's patronage, who was a senator from Nevada. And
Okay.
so he had purchased profiles in Courage and had arranged for Mike Mansfield to arrange for Kennedy to autograph the book for him. So he stopped by my elevator and he said, "Do you want to go over to Kennedy's office?"
And Kennedy was still a senator then?
Yeah, he's still senator. He hadn't announced.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, "Do you want to come over with me?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went over with Hogan to the office, and Kennedy was just saying good night to his girls that worked in the office. And they all were quite nice looking.
Were they play bunnies?
They looked like Playgirl bunnies. But anyway, he said, "Send those two young men back here." So Hogan and I went back to his office, and we were sitting at a desk about as far as you and I from Kennedy, and he spent 40 minutes with us,
Wow.
chewing the fat about how he loved Montana and respected Mike Mansfield, and had nothing but good things to say about Montana.
Right. Well, I remember he was friends with the Reavers, the Reaver family somehow.
Yeah.
There was. Okay, so 3 years at Georgetown.
2
years at Georgetown, and then the Government Employees Insurance Company. Let's talk about your family for a second. Go ahead and list off your offspring for us, please.
Yeah, Liz and I have 5 children. Our oldest, Deanna, was handicapped from the time of birth, and she's in a home in Stockton, California.
Okay.
The second daughter was Denise. She's married and lives in San Francisco.
Okay.
Has 2 children. The third daughter was Danette. She lives in Pinole, California. Then we had our first son, Patrick. He was born on the 4th of July, and so we called him Patrick Henry.
Right. And what's your real name?
I'm Henry Patrick.
Okay.
My real name, yeah. But anyway, Pat lives in Sacramento. Has 2 young girls who are doing well, both in college now.
Okay.
And then Tim is the youngest boy, and he lives in San Francisco as well. So
Okay.
they're all in California.
Okay. Now, are any of these kids athletes?
Denise's daughter and son are both good volleyball players. And
Okay.
they travel all over the place, out of state and everything to play volleyball. So she's very good. I haven't had a chance to watch her play, but I'm told that she's good.
Yeah, I'm sure she is. All right, let's continue on with your work career.
Well, as I started out with government employees, and I was invited to go west by the Vice President of Claims to help open up the San Francisco office. So 3 of us went from Bethesda, Maryland, the home office of Geico, to San Francisco to open up that office. And 4 of us, or 5 of us, were trying to start our own insurance company. And Geico found out about us, and they had a fierce sense of loyalty. So they sent their hatchet man out, and he dropped it on us. All 5 of us were let out on what they referred to as Black Friday.
Oh, wow.
And,
insubordination.
Yeah. So anyway, I quickly got new employment with Pacific Employers Insurance Company. And they were bought out by INA, and INA wanted me to go back to Philadelphia, and I didn't care for that, so I had used in my position independent adjusters for investigating and settling cases, and one of the firms invited me to join them as a partner, and I did, and I was with the company for 25 years and retired. And
is that DeVries?
Pardon?
Was that DeVries?
DeVries.
DeVries.
Yeah. DeVries and Company.
Yeah.
And my buy-sell in leaving the company was with a company known as Executive Life, which after 2 years went under. So I flunked retirement and quickly had to go back to work.
Okay.
So I went with a small company in Pleasanton, California.
Okay.
And they treated me well. They let me do my duty on 3 days a week, and so I saved Tuesdays for golf and Fridays to go to the cabin.
There you go.
Well, it worked out pretty well.
Where was your cabin at?
Cabin was in the Sierras at a place called Sugar Pine, which was near Sonora.
Oh, that had to be nice.
It was nice, yeah.
Remind you of Montana a little bit?
Yeah, that was my little Montana.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, my notes say 1989 you bought out from a partnership.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That was about right.
Victim of theft?
Pardon?
Victim of theft?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. When did you leave California and come back home?
2005.
2005, okay. You lived up on Lime Kiln?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so you were there for 15 years?
17.
17 years? Okay. Now, when did you start the green, what's it called, Greenie
Luncheon? Well,
when did you start that?
When I came back from California, I noticed that a couple of our guys weren't socially connected for some reason.
Yeah.
So I thought that a luncheon would be good to kind of glue that companionship that we should have. And we've been doing it now for a few years, and several younger people than our group have joined. Mm-hmm. And you were there for one of the occasions. And,
yes, I was.
And we limit guest speakers to 10 minutes, but they could talk about their health problems collectively.
Okay. Yeah. And tell me about your cabin here on Little Blackfoot.
Well, when I had the cabin down there in the Sierras, John and Barbara Downs came for a visit, and Barbara asked me how they could get one like that.
Like yours.
And so I said, well, you find the land. And so they did. They needed a little help financially, so I helped them buy the 10 acres by the Little Blackfoot. And John and Tom built the cabin, and they used Carol's football team to place the logs. And we've had the 10 acres for since the mid-'70s. So,
oh, okay.
So we've had it quite a while.
Yeah.
And Tom and I built a second structure that we use for a guest house, or will use for a guest house.
Yeah.
When we get a flue for the fireplace that we have in it.
Yeah.
And right now it's kind of occupied by squirrels and gophers, I think. Then I built a storage shed that we use as a tool area while I still had my legs. And our taxes went up, but not appreciably, so that's good.
Yeah. And that's a kind of a way for you to reconnect with your brothers.
Yes, it is. I feel both their presence quite often when I go up there.
Yeah.
I have a cigar out on the deck, and
yeah.
I know that they're saying that's bad for your health.
Yeah, that's where you go when you miss them. listen to them preach to you. So you've had knee problems and such, but it doesn't keep you away from the Carroll games.
No,
How long have you been?
Well, since we got up here, Nelson Stadium is quite an improvement from where we played at Vigilante Stadium.
Yes.
And so I enjoy going to the games. And
yeah.
I started up on row 25, I think it was.
Yeah.
But as my legs got worse, they decided to let me have a seat down below. So I'm
nice.
Pretty close to the 50-yard line, and enjoy football.
Yeah.
And basketball, we go right to the 50-yard marker and not 50-yard, whatever it is, the middle ground anyway.
Half court?
The half court.
Yeah.
And go there for the games. And both the wife and I enjoy that respite from our normal boring life.
Do you see every game?
See every home game that I can. Yeah, I haven't missed any that I know of.
Yeah, I didn't. That's what my buddy Dave was telling me, Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Speaking of Dave Van Nuys, tell me about the poker group that you play with.
Yeah, we have
who all's involved in that?
Yeah, we have a poker group that meets once a month, and it's hosted by a different member every month. And they have Dave Van Nuys, and Bob Ridgway, and Don McIntyre, and Curly Burns, and Bill and Jim Opitz. So
that's cool.
We get together, play nickel, dime, and quarter, so there are no fights.
Yeah, I have a lot of basketball knowledge there, too.
Yeah, there is.
All right, we're getting ready. We're on the home stretch.
Okay.
There's 4 seconds left till the buzzer.
All right.
And I thought of the closing question was, how did you get the names Grandpa and Grandma Ice Cream?
That was one of Pat's daughters was, I don't know, a few months old, and I had her on my lap. I can't remember where we were, but at any rate, I gave her a sip of ice cream. And the parents went absolutely wild at me for giving their kid ice cream. So anyway, that's where I learned the title.
Yeah, and it's on your license plate. Yeah. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for today, folks. I want to thank my guest, Harry Downs, for sharing parts of his interesting life and all the wonderful stories.
Okay, Kurt.
Thank you, Harry. And also, thanks to the boss, according to her baseball cap, his wife Liz, who is supervising off camera. Rounding out my sponsors are County Commissioner Andy Hunthausen, who can be reached at 406-461-2922. And of course, Andy is a relation to Harry's old Carroll coach, Ray Hunthausen. Also want to thank one of my individual sponsors, Tim Ferreter, who's a great sports fan. So until next time, Shaka da kind thing, my brother. And with apologies to Jackie Gleason, a little traveling music, if you please, Jeannie.